The Maple Leafs get their first win of the preseason, but lost John Tavares and William Nylander to injury in the process. What's the update on their status, and who made a stronger case to stick with the Buds after this one? We'll get into all of that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. What's going on, Dave? How are you feeling on a Friday?
Feeling good. Glad I don't have to panic about the Leafs going winless in the preseason because
panic's over. Panic's over. Leafs get their first win of the preseason. They defeat the Montreal Canadiens by a score of 2-1. But the big story of tonight's game, I think, is the injuries. The Leafs did not come out of this game unscathed. Leafs win, but do lose a couple key players in the process. William Nylander took a basically shin to the head in the first period, got a little tush push from Robertson, kind of blew a wheel, and went headfirst into the knee, leg, shin area of a Montreal defender. He was taken out for precautionary reasons, and then John Tavares took a hit also in the first period, played the rest of the game, but then got taken out, basically played a couple shifts in the third period and then sat out the rest of the night. Said that there was some stiffness in his leg after taking that hit. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into those situations. Why don't we begin with William Nylander? Because I think that's probably the one that maybe was a little bit more worrisome. Craig Berube did come out and say that he'll be fine. There's nothing to worry about. Nick Robertson came out and said, we've been told he's okay. We'll see how he is in the next couple of days. Tavares had, same thing, said that he heard that he's feeling all right. But we know that there's a history there of head issues, right? Like he had those serious migraine problems last year that cost him playoff games. And you never want to see anyone take a hard hit to the head like that. Definitely, Berube says nothing to worry about, but I can guarantee you a lot of Leafs Nation holding their breath and worrying about that hit.
Yeah, someone may want to let Berube know how things go in Leafs Nation, that saying don't have to worry, it doesn't work.
No, it does not.
It does not work. Like, I'll say a couple things on the injury. One, I don't think I saw some people trying to get mad at Dvorak for the knee.
Oh,
he had no time to react.
No,
he's literally skating, and all of a sudden Nylander's at his legs, and he's trying to go around, and there's no room for him to go around. So there's that. And man, how do you think Nick Robertson felt? He said he felt like there was a bit of an elephant in the room.
Yeah.
After that, but man, I know he wants a spot in the lineup, but you don't have to go out and getting guys injured.
Well, yeah, and that's not really a good look. Nick Kypreos laid into him pretty good in the intermission and said that's not actually a good play. That's a lazy play. It's if you're not getting on your horse and racing back for the back check, you want to try and push someone else there instead of do it yourself. For a guy who's trying to make a team and make an impression, that's not the way to do it. And actually it ended up, hurting one of your star players in the process. So it was kind of a double whammy. Doesn't look good to be doing that. And it also puts your team in a bad spot with an injury. I'm sure, yeah, there was a big elephant in the room, especially after that first period where it's dude, man, you're on thin ice with this club as is. And now you possibly could have injured one of our star players. I'll give him some credit, though. I thought he came out and played well, afterwards in the second and third period. Thought he was one of the least better players. We'll get to that in the 3 stars of the game. Little foreshadow there. But yeah, Nick Robertson's not got to feel good about that situation. And next time, I would imagine Craig Berube laid into him and said, hey, next time, don't worry about pushing, your teammate. Why don't you push yourself? Get your ass moving, and why don't you make that back check? It was just a really bad timing though. Like if you watch the replay, Nylander kind of just stops. Not that he stopped skating, but he like stopped making strides. And as he was kind of easing up, is when Robertson pushed him, and it kind of got him off foot. And then he slid, and he went head first into Dvorak. So it was really just a bad play, and it was just a very unfortunate set of circumstances. It was nobody's fault to take a page out of Lou's playbook. But yeah, either way, Nick Robertson probably not feeling the greatest, but hopefully Nylander will be okay.
Yeah, I just hope that that's also a lesson to maybe not do I never really like when players do that.
I've seen it work well. I have seen it work well where it's like, hey, you've got to step, behind, like get going. I've seen it work well, but it's more so if like, players at the end of a shift and he's got just no gas left and he's like, go, like just tries to slingshot, his teammate. But yeah, not the time, not the place, I guess. And yeah, it didn't work out very well.
Especially in preseason, like you just don't need to be trying those things, right?
Yeah, I mean, usually, like that's a 1 in 100 time where it's going to turn out that way, though. Like it's not as though it's a risky, dangerous play. It happens all the time. It's just it's spotlighted now because it caused an injury, and it had to be Nick Robertson, a guy who was on the playoff bubble, and it's like, well, now you're costing, possibly, Nylander some time here. But hopefully he's all right. I'd imagine we'll get some more updates over the next couple of days over the weekend. And Monday, hopefully we can have a better answer for how he's feeling a couple days out. But the other player who also got shaken up in the game was John Tavares. Took a hit in the first period that lingered, had a little bit of a lingering effect. And he talked about it after the game and said that his leg just kind of stiffed up on him a little bit throughout the game, and he was going to try and gut it out and play through. And apparently Berube just said after just a couple of shifts into the third period, nah, this again, precautionary, no need to push it. Just sit out and you're done for the night. And, hopefully again, it's nothing serious. Just, shaking up and maybe just some rests, ice pack or something, massage it out, possibly could help. Maybe you would hope that there's no injury there to Tavares, because man, you go into the year without Willie, without John, yeah, that's gonna take a real toll on your center depth.
Yeah, and again, yeah, already down Matthews in this game too. I think it was encouraging at least that Tavares talked to the media.
Yeah,
after the game, like usually if a player's dealing with an injury, they're not talking.
Yeah,
right afterwards. So I think that's an encouraging sign there. And like the hit didn't look like much, right? It just looked like just got caught a little bit along the boards and maybe just like a bit of like a Charlie horse. But yeah, I mean, again, preseason, why bother pushing something that doesn't really need to be pushed that much?
Yeah, exactly. So I think, they did the right thing. Both players were taken out of the game for what they called precautionary reasons. Let's hope that's the case and there's no lingering issues to either player. Again, information that hopefully will be given to the media, given to the fan base over the next couple of days. There's some parts of the game that I really liked, though. There were some players who I thought stood out for sure and had some excellent games. Why don't we take a break? We'll come back, get to our first 3 stars of the year, Dave, because it's the first victory, and that's what we do here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. So we'll get to that, and we got a bit of an update also on Calle Jarnkrok and Austin Matthews as well. So that's all coming up next on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
Today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. So join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your job more visibility at Indeed.com. So just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And they've got great Gametime Picks. They just curate it for you, makes it easier to save more on the sporting events, whatever concerts you want to go to, comedy events, theater, whatever you're looking to pick up tickets for. You can find them on the Gametime app. They've got seat views. They give you a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy it. And they've got the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What is it? Gametime. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as we are each and every Monday through Friday. You can find the podcast wherever you get a podcast and also up on YouTube as well. Just search up Locked On Leafs, hit subscribe, and we would be forever thankful. We are still on the road to 10K. We're trying to hit 10,000 subscribers, and we will be doing another Leafs jersey giveaway once we get there. Still a bit of a ways away. I think we only need about 100 now to get to 6,000. So we're inching closer and closer to that mark. That's for sure. All right, Maple Leafs with their very first win of the preseason. The panic is over. The panic is over. We no longer need to be worried about it. But that means that we get to do our first 3 stars of the game this year, Dave. So super stoked about it. Who did you like the most? Who to you is the first star of the hockey game?
Well, we talked a lot about him in the last segment, so I got to give it to Nick Robertson. We didn't obviously talking a lot about the injury, so we didn't even talk about the goal, like the game-winning goal, and just great individual effort on his part to understand that if he's going to have to score in this league, he's going to have to fight and win the puck, right? And just a smart play, gets the puck, buries it. Like that's the Nick Robertson we need to see, right?
Yes.
Not the one that was kind of, I would say, a bit of a passenger the last couple of games, right? This is the Nick Robertson we expect to see.
Yeah, he's got to assert himself. He's got to prove himself. And I thought that I don't know if he used the guilt of what happened with the Nylander situation as fuel, but I thought he was infinitely better. One of the most notable players on the ice, afterwards through the second and third period. He was shooting with more confidence. He was taking the puck towards the center of the ice more confidently. I thought that he had a couple nice setups. He set up Bobby McMahon for a good opportunity, wasn't able to finish, but set him up. And then obviously you mentioned the game-winning goal, just a really great strip of the defender, and then just quick release, beats the goalie. And that's what you need from Nick Robertson, right? Like this team is looking for secondary goal scorers, tertiary goal scorers, and that's what Nick Robertson provides. So he's got to show the coaching staff that he's able to do that in many different ways. So I thought that he was good tonight. Certainly, put his best foot forward. It was a couple of games that, as you said, bit of passenger, wasn't really making his case for that he should be on the roster or that he deserves to be there over other people. But I thought tonight he definitely, kind of staked claim and said, no, I deserve to be part of this opening night roster, and this is what I can offer. And I bet you the coaching staff, they're going home tonight. They're going to look at the tape and probably be like, hey, we got to give, Nicky Bobby a little bit more thought moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. Right. This is, giving him more of an opportunity to play with guys higher up in the lineup too.
Yeah.
This is the type of result that the coaching staff hopes to get.
Second star of the night, Dave.
Gonna go with the pair of Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Jake McCabe.
Oh, you like the bounce back game?
Big bounce back game. I remember Seeing so many people going after OEL after the first game. Looks brutal. Not a great signing. This and that. It's like great that we're reacting after preseason game number 1. They were by far the best pairing. Like this, I think their expected goals was like 84%. Like it was ridiculous. They were monsters tonight.
Yeah, I thought that they were. I mean, they didn't really give up anything. I mean, the Leafs as a team didn't give up a whole lot. They're
No.
pretty sound defensively. Now, I will say, you look at the two rosters, there was clearly a discrepancy, right? So it's not like they were going up against Caulfield, Slavkovsky, Suzuki, Line. I mean, it was a lot of, fourth liners and American leaguers, so that is one caveat to, giving the Leafs a lot of praise tonight. They weren't necessarily going up against, much talent or NHL caliber guys, I guess we could call them, or stars, rather. So that is one kind of thing we do have to keep in mind when we discuss, how well the Leafs played tonight. They weren't playing the Montreal Canadiens. They're pretty much playing the Laval Rocket for the most part. So yes, although still, it's you do want to see them, sticking to a process and playing right, which is what you saw out of that pairing there. I want to give some love to Easton Cowan, just like Nick Robertson. I thought he was a player who was very noticeable tonight. I thought that he played well with the opportunity that he was given to skate up on a top line with Domi and with Marner. Finally got a look with some real NHLers, and I thought he made some things happen. He had a couple of really strong takes to the net, ended up with 3 shots on goal, a couple of hits, a block shot, played over 15 minutes tonight. And I thought he was very noticeable, especially a couple of big plays there that he was able to make, that one along the boards, and then one he kind of cut past the I think it was Reinbacher, who was like a first round pick last year. So I thought Easton Cowan showed up too, similar to Nick Robertson, and said, "Hey, don't forget about me when you're thinking about the opening night lineup. I still would like to stay in whether or not I can stick around." I thought he, put his best foot forward tonight to make that case as well.
Well, yeah, and he was actually my 3rd star. So I thought it was nice. I messaged you earlier in the day when he said that he was going to be playing with Marner and Domi. I said, this is going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
And it was. To me, the confidence from him tonight was apparent, right?
Yes.
To take a little more ownership when he had the puck, go to the net, take a little more, assert himself a little bit more in those situations. And you know what? Defensively too, yes. As we mentioned, they weren't playing against top echelon talent, but you mentioned Reinbacher. That's a guy the Caps have a lot of high hopes for, right? He was a top 5 pick.
He went ahead of Easton Cowan in the same draft, so
this is very true. So it's a nice bounce back from him, especially considering it was almost like everyone was writing his ticket to London, which we are expecting. It's not like one game will change kind of everything, but I think this was important too, just for the Leafs to not let Easton Cowan get discouraged by the first couple of games as well.
Yeah, and I think also if you're Greg Berube, it makes you think, all right, maybe let's get these guys, an extra game. Let's get them an extra game than we originally thought. Let's see, if they can, do it again and again and again and force their way onto the roster. Because there's a couple of PTO guys who technically are not on the team that need to make it. I mean, some people are starting to pencil them in, which would leave Easton Cowan off the roster. But if Cowan proves that he can, be of service more to the Maple Leafs than those guys on PTOs, I'm sure the Leafs would consider keeping Cowan over a guy like, Lorentz, for example, who I thought actually was pretty good tonight in his first game as a Maple Leaf. Special teams for me showed up as my 3rd star, we'll call it. 1 for 3 on the power play. I thought that there was some really nice movement there on the opening, power play on the opening goal. Nice play from Marner just to slide it over to Tavares. Nice little redirect. And then the penalty kill was perfect. 2 for 2 on the PK tonight. Mitch Marner, again, I thought was dangerous. A couple times he was stripping pucks off guys. And look, not to go back to the conversation that we had yesterday, but that was, those are the things that Marner does and the value that he adds as a player that Nylander doesn't. right? Like those, abilities to break up passes, the abilities to, strip pucks off guys, while trying to kill penalties. That's very valuable. And that's kind of, where I see Marner being the better player between the two. But anyways, I digress on that. I thought that like the whole special teams units, I thought had a much stronger night, and it's good to see. I thought Holmberg also played well on the special teams. He had a good stick a couple times. I thought that he, broke up some plays. So overall, solid special teams. So I want to give them a little shout out as well.
Yeah, these are again moments where you need to see the special teams play. Show a little bit of form here. It was nice they got the power play goal early on.
Mhm.
There are still little things on the power play I would like to see. Adjustments made.
No Nylander, no Matthews, and then Tavares not there in the third period. It's like
it was almost like you shoot the puck. No, you shoot the puck. You shoot the puck. No, you shoot the puck. Working around is like, fine, I'll shoot the puck. What's going on?
The last guy we want shooting the puck.
It's like, no. It too when the Discord's like, Morgan Valley power play 1 still, right? Yep.
Yeah. I wonder if we do get a look though at OEL on PP1 at some point here in training camp. Just a look. Just give me a little taste of it. Wouldn't mind.
Still just a taste.
Just a little taste.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility. Especially if there's a lot of stagnant play on the power play, which we have seen. Coaches are always tinkering, always adjusting. I think that's something you can probably at some point expect from this coaching staff.
Absolutely. Really quickly, anything else you wanted to touch on from tonight's game?
Yeah, I mean the physicality was apparent. Max Domi just stirring the pot. Just love it. Again, I think just that's been like the subtle change. It started last year. I think you're going to continue to see it. Just they're going to be a little more of the antagonize a little bit rather than being the reactive sort of group. So I do like that. You need a little bit of that, even in preseason. Just set the tone.
Yeah, a little bit of P&V, as our boy Tree likes to call it. I thought the fourth line actually looked good as well. Like I considered giving them an honorable mention, but Lorentz, Camp, Reeves, like again, granted it's against AHLers for the most part, but if that is what Berube's looking at as a potential fourth line, I thought that they were all pretty good on the forecheck. I thought that Lorentz showed well in his first game as a Leaf, kind of came as advertised, a good stick in both the offensive and defensive end, heavy forechecker, defensively sound, kind of in the right spots. So that's, you like to see that. And then, I think that the Lorentz had a good showing too for his first. So you're looking at Lorentz, Nick Robertson, and Easton Cowan, I thought all played well. I didn't love Pacioretty's game tonight. That I will say. I didn't think he stood out at all, really. In fact, I don't know. I texted you this. To me, he looked a little slow. He looked slow tonight. And I don't know. Like, that's a little concerning when we talk about a guy who's like, we're already penciling in there. It's like, speed's important in the NHL. Foot speed's very important. And that's a little bit of a concern for a guy who's already has 2 Achilles injuries on his, under his belt in the last 2 years. If the foot speed's not there, I'm not sure how much I love this Pacioretty situation.
Well, the thing is how they use them, and especially you got to have them in the right grouping. And when you're a goal scorer like Pacioretty, you have again, it's about finding those other ways you're going to contribute. He showed I think he had a lot more jump in the first preseason game. I don't know if maybe just this one wasn't feeling it. I don't know, but it's more so if you're not going to be scoring, if you're not going to be producing offensively, you're going to have to find something else. And I understand they didn't bring him in here to be the grind or things like that, but if you're going to be playing every day, you got to carve out that role. Especially on in the middle 6, most likely bottom 6, which is where we would have him penciled in right now. So it's going to be one of those where they're going to have to really decide how this is going to work. And it's funny because people are, especially after Lawrence, the game he had, everyone's like, how is Brandon Pridham going to get all these guys to work?
You know what? Let's put a pin in that because I want to come back and talk about it because that is a good question and that is a conversation I think that's worth having. So why don't we come back, talk about that? We'll get you the update on both Austin Matthews and Callie Yarncroc moving forward. And one more game this weekend against the same club, the Montreal Canadiens, this time in Montreal. So we'll talk about all of those things on the other side. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed anytime you place your first $5 bet. You can bet on anything, could bet on the NHL, could bet on Saturday's game against the Montreal Canadiens if you like. Any $5 bet, your first $5 bet will get you $200 in bonus bets guaranteed on FanDuel.com. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues with Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. So the Maple Leafs with their first victory of the preseason. The panic is over. We can hide the panic button in case people were worried about the Leafers. I thought that there was a bunch of players who actually played well tonight, and a lot of guys who we talked about there being some pressure on to perform that did so quite admirably. Nick Robertson, we talked about. Easton Cowan was another guy who I think there was pressure on to perform. Obviously, with Lawrence being on a PTO, Pacioretty being on a PTO, there's only so much space on the roster, though, come opening night. I don't believe that all four of these players even will even be able to be on the opening night roster. Like, where do you see this all kind of shaking out? Like, who gets the opportunities? Like, where's your head at with these kind of four players battling for a couple of spots here?
Like, especially with the two guys on PTOs.
So you could throw Holmberg into that conversation too, by the way.
Yeah. Like, those two were offered contracts elsewhere, right? They had opportunities to play elsewhere, but they wanted to come to Toronto and they wanted to play here. So to me, yeah, it's obviously they're not going to command a huge salary. It's just you don't have a whole lot of space. And you look at the salary cap chart, like there's ways, like if I had it my way, there's ways to make room. It's just you're gonna have to find ways to get out of some contracts that are. I would deem.
I don't even think it's necessarily a cap situation. I think it's a numbers game.
Well, on top of that as well,
I think that it's more so a numbers game. I mean, even if you traded away or you got rid of salary cap, I mean, I just don't think that all four of those guys, can all be on the team at once.
Yeah, because especially when you think about like Connor
and Reeves, add Reeves in there, 6.
Yeah, like there's so like I guess with Dewar, he's out. I don't know how long he's.
There's another guy. Yeah, Connor Dewar is also involved.
Like, there's a lot of, I wouldn't say trimming the fat kind of required here, but it's becoming clear that when we talk about the competition, like this should be the best bottom 6 the Leafs will ever put out because they got so many. Like past years, it's like we knew who they were going to be. It wasn't like, maybe this, like, no, there wasn't this type of competition. And that's why I'm saying, like, yeah. And as you said, you can trade one guy, but that's only one spot you're accounting for. Right. So, yeah.
Who are you going to trade? Like,
right. Like everyone's got Nick Robertson in their crosshairs. But then when you see him play a game like tonight, this is a reminder of what he is capable of doing. The problem is that consistency. Pontus Holmberg, I've actually had no issues with his game. Right, yeah. I think he's done some good things, and he's not expensive. So like trading him doesn't really again, this is, as we said, this is not a salary cap thing. This is more of a roster thing. Like David Camp to me has always been the guy that I've circled as like you're that supposed to be that defensively reliable center. Hasn't really shown that for me, right? Like I'd rather give the spot to a Pontus Holmberg, or I'd rather give the spot to somebody who's going to have more of an impact, right, each and every day, and at a far cheaper contract as well.
Question: would you attach? Like I think you would have to add a sweetener to get rid of David Camp's contract. What's he making? 2.4 for another 2 years after this, I think. So like 3 years technically.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a heaping amount of teams lining up to take on that contract. So you're going to have to give something, a sweetener of some kind for someone to take that on. I mean, would you be willing to add Robertson into a deal as like the sweetener to get out of Camp's contract? And then all of a sudden, things start to kind of fall into place a little bit more. Now you've got Pacioretty as one of those roles. You can sign Lorentz. You can put Pontus as your fourth line center. If you want to go ahead with Reeves, or maybe Cowan can earn a spot, or Nick Robertson can earn a spot in your top six. Things start to, kind of make a little bit, things start to fall into place a little more, I guess.
I can see that, and just like, are we going to sacrifice younger players to keep a Ryan Reeves in the lineup, right? And that's the part that's the part that I'm concerned about. Is I understand why Ryan Reeves is here, totally get it, but we also have to look at why this team has constantly not found ways to have that balance, and it's because they don't have guys in the bottom six who can elevate their game and provide that two-way ability. Yeah, some of them can defend, but if you want them to come out and play a couple of offensive shifts, it's a struggle at times for them. They've been better in past years, but yeah. Oh, it's so tough. This is going to be the most interesting, I think, final cuts.
Mm-hmm.
So they might just go very simple with it and say to a Steeler, it's like, yeah, we like what you've done, but unfortunately, we just don't have the room.
Yeah. The only thing about it is, like, I don't know how many of these bottom six guys outside of what Pacioretty could possibly bring, and an Easton Cowan, if they view him as someone who could be in your middle six. Like there's just not a lot of offense you're going to get from Lorentz. You're not going to get much offense from Reeves, from Holmberg, from Dewar. Like, you're just not going to get a lot from those guys. So, really, I guess it's Nick Robertson, but like, is Nick Robertson suited to be in a bottom six role? We've kind of already decided that's not necessarily the case. He's probably better off, in a top six role. Is Easton Cowan going to be, given a 9-gamer in a third line role, let's say? Possibly. I guess you could potentially get a look at that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. What do we got now? We're through 3 games, so there's 4 more games to go.
I think there's just 3 games.
3 games to go. Yeah, 1 more against Montreal, and then 2 against Detroit next week, and then it's go time. Then it'll be go time, and we'll get an idea, I guess, of how things will kind of fall into place at that point. Matthews and Yarncroc are going to be, factored into the lineup at some point as well. They skated today. They practiced, so all is well, it sounds like, with Matthews and Yarncroc. The fact that they're at least on the ice means that it's not serious, which was what we were told by Berube, so that sounds good. But, I mean, the question now becomes, and I guess you can include Nylander and maybe even Tavares into this discussion, do you kind of keep these guys out of the preseason for precautionary reasons at this point? Like, there's 3 more games. I mean, is it even worth risking injury or re-injury to these guys?
If there's any concern about a potential for that re-injury, I could see that, but at the same time, it's also like you also want to make sure the guys are good to go with the season. Like, you heard Tavares tonight, they asked him like the value of playing these preseason games. Like, you just can't match that level of intensity in practice, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of those factors. But coach is probably gonna be like, I want you available day one, game one of the season. I don't want to have, especially in Nylander's case with what happened last year, anything around the head. Beliefs are going to be
full precaution with that.
Yeah. And especially with Matthews too, right? He's got the back issue. He's had concussions in the past. He's had a couple of things that you're just like, we can take a step back a little bit if we need to. But yeah, I mean, the players are going to have their say. Coaching staff's going to have their say. I just think you can also manage it a bit with these preseason rosters and the way you kind of line these guys up as well.
Yeah. Well, got another game tomorrow night in Montreal. We'll see who ends up playing. I'd imagine most of Group 2 and maybe a couple of these guys who are competing could potentially get another game. Maybe Lorentz gets into another game. Maybe Nicky Bobby, another chance to perform. We'll see. We'll see what that roster looks like. I'm sure it'll be coming out on Saturday. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast, though. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcast platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on X at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys on Monday. Enjoy your weekend, folks. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.